Welcome to episode 61 of the Creative Train podcast. This one is about seeking validation. In episode 60, I recounted the story of me stepping way outside of my usual comfort zone by writing a song with lyrics in French, which I also sang. The story behind that is kind of interesting. It might be worth a listen if you're into that. I was not exactly confident, but I was also not entirely uncertain of my proper diction in French. I struggled a bit with the confidence to actually release the song to the world, not just record it and call it done. I wanted to trust myself, my judgment, my process, and my skills and my understandings. And I'll tell you the rest of my story about seeking validation versus self-doubt with stalwart confidence. All aboard. I've sought peer review on my mixes a lot over the last few years. I have a condition called tinnitus, which is, if you know what it is, you know what it is. It's a constant reminder to me that I should really probably seek the advice of my peers in order to release the best sounding product, right? This condition, tinnitus, often masks or prevents me from hearing the entire audible spectrum in a reliable way. It's an illusion going on in my ears all the time about what I'm actually hearing. Something that I notice, though, is that often the folks I reach out to for input, none of them have ever asked me for any insights on any of their own works. Now, a lesser man might take offense to this, but instead of doing that, I made this just a totally solo project. So I did get some help early on with proper, more common use of the French language instead of the more sort of formal version we're taught in school. And I am very grateful for that help, absolutely. But as it became clear that the process of recording the song for release was nearing completion, I kept the thought in mind that I've proven over and over again to my clients that my work is good enough and I should resist the temptation of waiting on somebody else's validation before I call it a fait accompli, so to speak. And now that the song is fully mixed and mastered for release, I look back at those times, in the recent past and far past, when self-doubt crept into my process at almost every turn in some things. And this impacted me in a few ways. It always delayed the completion of things because I was left waiting for someone to get back to me, or when something was recommended that wasn't true to the vibe of the piece, or I didn't think it would really work as well as they did, and I ended up not using it. Then I felt a bit of guilt that the person would hear the eventual release and think that they wasted their time listening and conversing about the piece. Yeah, it's kind of weird. These things creep into your head, though, when you're an artist. That self-doubt thing, it's eerie. However, I did buckle a little bit last night, and I sent my final mix version 1 to a few folks asking for their thoughts. One person said they were simply too busy to listen this week. Too busy to listen to one song in a week. That's weird. Another said they'd rather read the lyrics than listen to the song. Another didn't even bother to open the Google Drive link I sent and went on to send me a dozen or so more unrelated links on top of the one that I sent. Only one person listened. My sister did. And she felt it was one of my best pieces, so thanks, sister. It's worth taking note of these things, though. Who has your back? Who is willing to engage? Who is there to support and to help? There are relationships which are terribly lopsided, and when this type of, quote, arrangement spills over into partnerships that involve business decisions, then things can go sideways pretty quick. Check out an earlier episode called Toxicity in Creative Partnerships for my own experiences with that. What I was talking about earlier isn't what I would really define as a toxic relationship with these folks who chose not to listen, but more of a one-sided relationship kind of thing, where maybe there was no perceived benefit to them by engaging, so they chose not to. They didn't think it would be worth their time, maybe. Or maybe it's just not in their nature to want to help others on a creative project that they aren't directly necessarily involved in. Who knows? It's certainly not me. But I've come across a few very competitive artists in my life who most certainly want everyone around them to know just where they stand in that person's rank of your artistic relevance. Now, repeat after me. Art is not a competition. Art is not a competition. And like I said, I don't know what the particulars are, and I'm not going to reach out and ask again. Instead of feeling rejected or bitter because of this, I took it as a way to bolster my confidence and trusting that my product, believing that through the tinnitus issue, it's been personally and professionally disruptive at times, but through that, I have the ability to actually work around it and do well at it. And this reminds me of a great quote I heard about audio monitors or studio speakers, whatever you want to call them, if you will. It was about comparing various price ranges of how a higher cost doesn't always ensure better results in your mixes. There are no perfect speakers. And the quote was something to the effect of, all speakers lie to you. You just have to figure out what that lie is. I thought that was pretty cool. And at this point, once you know what the lie is, you can work around it, accommodate it, expect it, and use your knowledge of the lie to ensure your product doesn't reveal what the lie was or is. And in audio terms, this can mean that your speakers might have certain enhancements or deficiencies in their overall spectrum of performance. And we as audio engineers will often overcompensate by exaggerating the compensatory EQ adjustments or whatever it happens to be to make it seem proper in our ears. But that's just the lie the speakers are telling you. And this is why we always listen on various speaker systems, headphones, in our cars, on our phones, to make sure that what we think is a balanced and agreeable mix actually translates across those aforementioned listening devices and spaces. And this plays into the idea of seeking input of your peers in your creations. It's not like you're asking them a how-to kind of thing, but you can reach out to them and show them what you've done and ask for their observations. It's not a weakness to seek input from others, but when we allow it to halt or hinder our process until we receive that validation, that's when the bad stuff starts to happen. The self-doubt and imposter syndrome thing. I've been there. I went through it again earlier this week, and this is my cleansing moment of that. So later this week, today is February 19th, 2026. Later this week, after a few more listens, I'm going to release this French song on all the main platforms. It's called Dans mes rêves, which means in my dreams. So keep your eyes and ears open for it. It'll be on all the main streaming platforms. My big takeaway from this experience is to be confident in what and how I do things. I sought help when I actually needed it with the verbiage and the grammar. But when it came to the peer review part, I just have to accept that sometimes the folks you reach out to aren't going to be terribly receptive. I don't think they're being dismissive or mean or anything. Just sometimes they're not into it. What's your takeaway? Are you feeling a lack of confidence, or are you very confident in your abilities? Because really, you have no reason not to be confident. We're not in any competition. There is no winner or loser in art. The imaginary scale that others might measure you with is only in that person's mind. That's not for you to worry about how others perceive your art. If you really need input, ask someone. Ask me, I'll tell you. Often, someone who's not even remotely an artist might have a super cool idea that you never would have thought about because they're not into the process of what is typically done. You never know. But don't go the route of asking AI, though. You'll just end up looking and sounding like everyone else, right? So there's your pep talk. Now go get to work. I think another really good takeaway from this is to remember that when somebody asks you for your insight, your input, your opinion even, and it's also somebody who does the same thing that you do. So they're asking you for a critique or help with a process that they know you also do. That person is showing you a very vulnerable version of themselves. And that's not a weakness to have that vulnerability. It's to say, okay, here's what I have. What do you think? Take the time to honor that the same way that you step back from your own art, your own creations, your own songs, your own dishes, whatever you do. Take a step back from that, assess it as if it's somebody else's work, and honor that in your fellow artists as well.